Okay, people, it is 1:30, so if we can all get ready to get on with governance. And as we're waiting, it's a full moon tonight, just in case anybody cares. That's when we should have found that in the park.
I was going to say, now the pieces are starting to come together.
I will call us to order and ask Mr. Westerson to do a roll call.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Here.
Councillor Middleton Hope. Present. Councillor Dodick.
Present.
Councillor Croson.
Present.
We have quorum, and I believe we have Councillor Carlson I see online as well with us.
Excellent.
Thank you.
I'll next do the reconciliation statement. The City of Lethbridge acknowledges that we are gathered on the lands of the Blackfoot people of the Canadian Plains and pays respect to the Blackfoot people past, present, and future while recognizing and respecting their cultural heritage, beliefs, and relationship to the land. The City of Lethbridge is also the home to the Métis Nation of Alberta. So we go then to our agenda. I have a motion from Councillor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the agenda of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting of May 23rd, 2024 be adopted as presented. Councillor Middleton Hope.
I'll call a question unless there's any changes.
No amendments? Question's been called. All in favor? We will assume that Councillor Dodick also wanted to vote, but he was busy.
There he is.
Okay. It's unanimous.
There.
I have now the consent agenda. We have minutes from our last meeting and the status of initiatives, and I have a motion from Councillor Dodick. Be it resolved that the minutes of the Governance Standing Policy Committee meeting held on April 25th, 2024 be approved, and the Chair and City Clerk designate be authorized to sign the same. And further be it resolved that the status of initiatives for May 23rd, 2024 be received as information. Councillor Dodick?
Self-explanatory. Call the question.
Question's been called. All in favor? That passes unanimously as well. Moving on in the agenda, we have two presentations. The first is by Robin Harper, General Manager, Recreation and Culture, and Gillian Bracken on the 2024 Civic Culture Plan. Unless there is any introduction that Ms. Kleisinger wishes to do? Okay, then we'll jump right to you, Mr. Harper. The floor is yours.
Good afternoon, members of Governance SPC. We're pleased to be here this afternoon to present the master plan, the Civic Culture Master Plan. I would first like to express a sincere thank you to the people that made this plan a reality. It has involved many hours of hard work by many people, community members, and partners. First off, Annalie Adair and her team from Evo Culture 2.0. Annalie is joining us remotely. The Project Steering Committee, made up of Gillian Bracken, Corinne Putman, Perry Stein, Andrew Malcolm, Ross Kilgore, Charlene Brewsted Mountain Horse, Tara Grindle, Suzanne Lint, Jana McKenzie, and Katie Joe Rabbit, as well as the community facilitators that assisted us with the engagement. I would like to say a special thank you to Gillian Bracken, who has been committed to this project from the beginning as the project manager and has spent countless hours getting us to this point. The Civic Culture Plan identifies culture as an interconnected and interdependent element in the larger civic planning framework. It sets long-term directions so that appropriate decisions can be made and the proper resources can be allocated. The plan is based on the premise that culture is fundamental to building an inclusive and sustainable community. During the course of the plan development, it became clear that culture is already prevalent in many existing documents within the corporation, including the Gateway to Opportunity Action Plan, the recently updated Municipal Development Plan, the Recreation Culture Master Plan, and several others, including Indigenous Placemaking Strategy and Public Realm Audit, the Building Bridges Community Action Plan, the Heritage Management Plan, and the Reconciliation Implementation Plan. Culture plays a key role in and is of high importance to the community. The community and our community partners play a key role in respect to the local cultural ecosystem. The Civic Culture Plan is part of that ecosystem, with the intent of determining and clarifying the city's role within that system. We want to enhance and complement the efforts of the community. There were three key community expectations of the plan, and these were to address equity gaps, to foster a collective civic identity, and to sustain support for culture in civic planning. Through the course of working through the engagement process, a shared vision was revealed. That vision, that Lethbridge is an intercultural city that reflects its diversity, that we acknowledge the role that culture plays in creating an inclusive, dynamic, and thriving city, supporting residents and visitors alike to feel a sense of connection and belonging. Through the engagement process, the community also identified the top values of respect, inclusion, and diversity. Respect in cultivating an environment that values reciprocal relationships, listens to diverse perspectives, celebrates various cultures, and recognizes the significance of individual contributions. Inclusion, by enabling active citizenship and participation to foster a sense of belonging in which everyone can actively participate in cultural activities, feeling welcome, safe, and valued. And finally, diversity, by embracing diversity as a core value, implementing policies and processes that actively leverage the varied perspectives, skills, and backgrounds that contribute to the overall success of the community. This plan was developed through the lens of that shared vision, the 3 core values identified, and the following guiding principles: the sharing of leadership, the listening first, building trust, putting equity at its center, and ensuring access. The work on the plan began in July of 2021, and it has proven to be a somewhat longer task than we anticipated, but a very worthwhile effort. The level of engagement and the willingness of the community to be involved and provide their comments and feedback has been tremendous. When we began the development of the project, we quickly realized that culture was so much more than just arts and culture. This is reflected in the plan itself and in the length of time it has taken us to get here. It is also captured in the community definition of culture that was developed as part of the plan. That we have relationships with culture, we feel culture, and we practice culture. We have relationships with culture in the way that we connect with people around us. We feel culture in the way, in our personal identity and sense of place, and we practice culture in how we express and practice in various ways through tradition, arts, food, and celebrations. The plan emphasizes embracing and celebrating diversity and vibrancy and is structured over 10 years, divided into 3 phases. Phase 1 is setting the framework. Phase 2 is setting our aspirations and translating them into actions. And phase 3, the culmination is Lethbridge as a vibrant cultural hub. There are several key strategies to phase 1 that are outlined on page 23 of the plan, and these are key to setting the foundation for the success of the implementation of the plan. As mentioned previously, engagement activities were essential, and the details are captured in the current state and future directions report. Any initiatives that require new funding as part of this plan will be requested as part of future budgets. And the development of policy will include the cultural investment framework and will be brought back to council along with those policies. Now, what are we asking Governance SPC and City Council for? We're asking that you adopt in principle the Civic Culture Plan, that you direct administration to develop a civic arts policy and a cultural heritage policy. You direct administration to return for any approvals for objectives requiring funding or resources, either for capital or operations. And finally, direct administration to return with updates. Thank you, and Anna Lee is available for questions, as well as Jillian Bracken and myself.
Thank you, Mr. Harper. Since this is a standing policy committee, we do now open it to the public if there are any members of the public who have anything to say on it. I'm only staring at one member of the public out there. Do you have anything you wish to say, or you don't have to, of course?
All right.
Please provide your name, and you have up to 5 minutes.
Okay, Michelle Day, just member of the public today, interested in our cultural future for our community, and absolutely support this plan being adopted in principle, because at the end of the day, it's taking us one step forward to work together and align with the city. So absolutely support this. So thank you.
Okay, perfect, thank you. We now open it up to members of the SPC or members of council who have joined us to ask any questions they may have. Start with Councillor Dodig.
I figured I should ask a question. Just explain the difference to me between a civic culture plan, which you're asking us to refer to City Council to adopt, and the difference between the civic arts policy and cultural heritage that you're asking administration to bring back to governance in 2025. I assume one is a subset of the other, or a Venn diagram, or just sort of in sort of quick terms. Cole's version, explain to me the difference.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Dodick. The Civic Culture Plan guides and provides direction to the corporation and to the community as to get to a certain point. The arts and cultural policy and the cultural heritage policy fall underneath that overall direction and will further guide us in our ability to make decisions and allocate resources.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Dodick. Moving on, next in queue is Councillor Carlson.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Thank you, members of the committee, for allowing us to participate. If I can, through you, Madam Chair, to Mr. Harper, I'll admit, not being on the committee, I sort of skim some of the documents rather than reading them in depth, but I didn't see any mention of the NMAX Center. I saw the Yates Center talked about and highlighted as an important player, but I didn't see anything about the NMAX or any participation in any of these discussions from the NMAX. And the NMAX, in my opinion, hosts a wide variety of both artistic and cultural events. So I'm just wondering, did I miss something, or is there a reason that the NMAX wasn't a key player?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carlson. The NMAX was engaged as an internal stakeholder several times throughout the process, but they didn't have an identified role on the project team throughout it. I would agree they're definitely a facility that is of importance. I don't think they're named specifically in here, but we would intend to engage them through that interdepartmental working group as part of implementation and continue the connection that's been there through the development of the plan. They weren't a key player, but they definitely were a player in the development of the plan.
I appreciate hearing that, because it seems to me that it could have been a gap because they do host quite a lot of events, both artistic and cultural, things like powwows, heritage days, etc. So I didn't want to see that being missed. So I'm glad that's there. Further question, if I can, Madam Chair. One of the things that's talked about somewhat in the plan and the documents provided is our public art policy and implementation. And it talks about the capital expenditures on that. Is something perhaps that's been talked about, and I again, forgive me, I didn't read it in too much depth, but developing something similar for not just capital expenditures, but operating expenditures. And maybe it'll come in the arts policy. But one of the gaps I see is that we fund ad hoc. We don't have a consistent way of funding arts and culture groups in our community. It seems that some that came in early into the system get ongoing grants. Others have to apply for an ever-shrinking portion of grants. And I wonder if something like the public art policy has ever been talked about for more stable arts fundings. Just to make some parity. I know that we have certain ones that are in our operating budget for ever and ever, amen. Another one like the NMAX, which we actually taxpayers fund heavily, but competes with other artistic groups in our community. It provides a bit of an uneven playing field. So has anything like that been discussed?
Through the chair to Councillor Carlson, I think doing the work to address the gap that you've identified is a key component of this plan. And I think also I would maybe invite Annalee, our lead consultant, to comment on that a little bit, just based on what she's seen in other municipalities and how that informed some of the recommendations in the plan.
Thank you.
Thank you. Good afternoon. What I will say was that was one of the key priorities in the development of the plan, and certainly from the community perspective, was the equity involved in investment from the city. There was quite an extensive analysis of the current state of funding, who it goes to, how much, the percentage, et cetera, over the years, and where the gaps were. So in the plan, there's quite an extensive process that we've laid out for the review of all the granting programs within the city, because there's some overlap and there's a lot of grants that do kind of fund project grants throughout the city. But what we're looking to do in the plan is to do an extensive review, consolidate the funding, and come back to council with an investment framework with equity as its key principle. So that means that, you know, that is looking at operations, it looks at project funding, it looks at, you know, all of the event pieces. So we did quite an extensive, if we went back to the key findings report, you'll see a lot of charts and graphs that we presented at that time. They were then utilized both externally and internally across departments to better examine what is happening internally with investment. So that, and one of the key pieces of having interdepartmental working group is that allows for that consistency and cohesion between departmental resources and investments, so that they are looked at holistically.
Thank you.
And yeah.
Thank you. And thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Carlson. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much, and thank you very much. Carlson upstairs, how very thorough it was and how nice it was to see all the detail in this guiding document as we move forward. I do particularly like as well that as we move into a motion, we're looking at administration developing a civic arts policy and a cultural heritage policy, recognizing that arts are not part of culture and that we're not losing that. But to go back to that, as I read through the report on page 27, and I'm looking at page 27 of the report plan, so it's the red 27 at the bottom of the page number, so that's the document I'm using. We're renaming the portfolio, the Community Arts and Culture portfolio, to the Cultural Planning and Development Services. I know that one of the questions I'm going to get is from the arts community, and what assurances there will be that arts aren't going to be lost because they're not necessarily synonymous with culture. So how do we answer that?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. That is one of the suggestions that has come out of this report, is to rename more accurately what the scope of that role would be. We haven't actually done that yet. But I mean, from our perspective, internally and administratively, arts does play a key role in culture, and it does form a part of culture. So we would not consider that to be separate at all. Even though there would be two separate policies in place, we would consider arts as part of culture, whether it's performing arts, whether it's visual arts, that all makes up part of culture.
So how, help me understand how we'll assure the arts community that they're not going to get lost, though, as, like you said, that's their concern, what you just stated, is putting them as part of culture. And one of the questions I keep getting and am regularly reminded of is, we are not culture, we are separate from that. The policy we're talking about does that in part, but how do we assure them that they're not going to get lost?
I think at this point, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, it is the policy, right? And the fact that what is being recommended here and supported by administration is that it's not one policy together, that it's two separate, maintaining that leadership role for a body which is currently filled by the Allied Arts Council and separating a cultural heritage leadership role recommended in the report to be the Galt Museum and Archives. So I think as you've seen in the recommendations too, we're going to start with the policy, and I think we've absolutely heard that from the arts community as well. We'll keep that in mind as we work with them to develop that. But I think at the root of it, to start this implementation, is an acknowledgement, like you said, that they're separate, and thereby we'll be creating two separate policies.
Perfect. Thank you so much. If I may, another question. When we look on page 43 of the document, again, I'm using the red numbers to guide me through this. We talk about a review of fee-for-service agreements. Have we not just done that?
Through the chair to Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, to a certain degree, yes, but we haven't applied this lens to the ones that would fall in that arts and or cultural heritage in those buckets. So this would be, we've started the work on some of them. I'm thinking notably the relationship with the Japanese garden, as we're doing a specific, site-specific Japanese garden master plan with them. Some of the other ones, it would just be working to align things like performance measurement and reporting with the vision and outcomes that are identified in this plan and within policy, to make sure that the investment that City Council is making in those organizations will help realize the goals and the vision of this plan. So it would be revisiting them in the context of the direction that would come through the plan and through the policy.
Okay. Thank you very much. I'll jump out of the queue for now, but I do have some other questions.
Perfect, thank you. So I'd like to have some clarification. One of the motions being brought forward is to direct administration to develop civic arts policy and a cultural heritage policy. Are these council policies or administrative policies? What will they become?
Thank you for the question, Councillor Carlson. These would be council policies.
So we're looking to develop 2 new policies for council under these.
Correct.
Okay, and they'd be coming back to governance for review to see if they are approved.
That's correct.
Okay. And what would be the function of those? What would be the purpose of those policies?
It would be to really outline the role of both the community and the community partners, as well as the city, city councils and city administration in those roles, clarifying responsibilities, resources allocation. It would guide resource allocation and really set the guidelines of how we manage those different areas.
Okay. Next question is more of a philosophical question. We've had transportation has brought master plans forward, and this is essentially a master plan that you're bringing forward. And even though we may discuss and debate how much money and where roads should be built, no one has any concern that, we have transportation master plans, because we know roads are the function of a city. You're coming here with the civic, basically master plan, culture master plan. There's going to be a lot more pushback in the community about whether or not this is an area cities should be working in. So can you give us a reason for why this is being done, how the community has been asking for this, and its purpose, and how it will enhance our community?
Sure. Thank you, Councillor Crowson, for the question. The need for this plan really emerged as a result of the work that was done in 2021 with the Recreation and Culture Master Plan, where through the extensive work that was done on that plan with the community and with internal stakeholders, it was made clear that we don't have any real cultural strategy that guides or supports the investments that we're making. We are already very much in this space as a funder. We own cultural institutions that are operated in large part by external organizations that we fund. We provide grants to external organizations, many of whom offer arts, culture, heritage type activities. But we have not really been strategic or coordinated in how we're making the investments that we're doing. That's not to say that the impact is not there and that the groups that we're supporting are not doing excellent work. It's just that we haven't been clear on what our role is. So a big part of this plan was clarifying and starting the work, because really that's a key part of the first phase of implementation, is to clarify and organize how we support and invest in culture in the community. So all of that to say, I think we're already in this space, and the intent of this plan was to work with at first, mainly our partner organizations who deliver the vast majority of cultural programs and services in the community on behalf of the city, and then later a broader engagement with the community to figure out what our role is and how we can better support what's already happening in the community.
So like any master plan, this is a framework guiding document that sets the expectations for the community to know what the city's doing.
Yeah, the biggest thing that really comes out of this, I mean, it's a rich document with a lot of great recommendations and a real blueprint for administration to follow to get us from where we are to a place where we have hopefully addressed more of the concerns we've heard from the community. The key here really is around the kind of clarifying that role and the relationship with the community.
And like any of our master plans, is there a guarantee that everything in here will be implemented, or is it a guiding document that is a living document and addresses the concerns moving ahead?
Yeah, we've done our best in the recommendations that accompany this presentation to clarify what specifically we're looking for from council at this stage. It's really about adopting it in principle. That vision is the key part of this plan, because that will really guide policy development and all of the rest of the work. So if we can rally around the vision and the high-level guiding principles that this plan outlines, we can start our work with a policy development and then would return to council with any other kind of key decisions that need to be made around financial investments or large-scale changes to processes that we follow.
Okay, perfect. Thank you very much. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much. So one of the things I was excited to see in this report, it's on page 44, was the initiatives with regards to microgranting. Can you tell me a little bit more about that?
Yeah, we've received a lot of great feedback through Annalee of successes of these types of programs in other municipalities, and I might call upon Annalee as well to provide a little bit of context. This will not be something that we will be able to implement immediately, just given the resources we have available, but definitely something that we'll bring back for an operating budget consideration for council to consider funding in the future. I don't know, Annalee, if you want to add anything about some of the successes that you've seen with these types of programs in other spaces.
Yeah, thank you. What I will say is that it's what is sometimes called a quick, easy win in terms of visibly highlighting the diverse culture that you have and cultural expression in your community. This is how it's used in terms of microgrants. It allows for reducing the barriers that sometimes exist for those groups that Councillor Carlson was talking about in terms of organizations and artists and groups that have had funding in the past. Also, the barriers that exist maybe in just writing grants and being in the know. So this is how municipalities are tackling the equity question and also highlighting the visibility of the various cultural expressions. And it really came through in the community engagement sessions that we had through the Ethnic Association and all other meetings that we had, is that, Heritage Day is not sufficient in terms of highlighting and sharing one's culture with other people. So the point of these micro grants is to have intercultural exchange between cultures, and these kind of events that are low barrier to entry points to see what's out there and make visible the various and diverse cultures that you have in your community through expressions.
And I think as well, Annalie, we talked about this as an opportunity to pilot something before making large-scale changes to established granting programs. So we could try it out, see how it goes, and then respond accordingly.
Yeah, it is a pilot in terms of gathering. It's a research to see how this goes and to see what is out there to then drive, what that investment framework will look like moving forward to achieve the vision of the plan.
Thank you very much. No, that's fantastic. When I saw that in there, I was very excited. It was very exciting to see that as a suggestion in there. One more question, if I may, at this point. As you move through the report, page 73, we talk about developing creative industry strategy, incentivizing corporate and social responsibility collaborations, promoting environmental sustainability, data sharing platforms, and then promoting intercultural tourism. Are these not actions we're already doing? Because I saw a lot of what we're already doing here.
I can address that, and then maybe Annalie, you can add some comments as well. I think we have done some work in many of these areas, or there are organizations within the community that have already started work in these spaces. The creative industries work in particular, we've started in a small section of that, right? Keeping in mind that creative industries is much larger than just film and the gaming. So there's work to be done to grow there. And I think too, this just highlights the fact, one of the things we're trying to address with the plan is that there's a lot of kind of, I don't want to say siloed, but maybe separate work, or work that there isn't an identified department or body overseeing to connect all of these dots. So as we work through the first few phases of the plan to kind of bring everybody together and work strategically to have a greater impact, there might be more connection to these things. So this may be too just that Recreation and Culture has been kind of the lead entity on this plan, and currently we don't have any connections, like formal connections to organizations who are doing this work. So
Okay, so it would be a matter of connecting then with those groups. So Tourism Lethbridge with the tourism work, EDL with the work they're doing in the creative industries. And then when you talk about the data sharing, making sure that the city and those groups and the other groups that are working in that space are all sharing the data and information so that we don't have the silos like we have sometimes seen in the past.
Yeah, absolutely. And talk about like strategy and maximizing impact through that kind of collective effort. Right now, like I said, there's a lot of great work happening, but because we don't have a rallying point of a plan or a policy or any kind of strategy, it's just kind of all happening. So yeah, the idea here would be to, in that third phase, to expand the focus to those areas.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you. Ms. Bracken, or either one of you, I'd like to draw your attention to page 83, the strategy 1.5, prioritizing space. What I've heard, and for the majority of the report, we talk in terms of programming and discussions around programming and how we're going to create strategic planning and so forth. But I'm interested in, are we looking at developing anything new? And by developing anything new, I'm not necessarily talking about new programs. I'm talking about new facilities. So are we looking at any new facilities? Are we looking at renewing facilities? Things like Civic Square. I note in that section on Strategy 1.5, we do allude to it. But I'd like you to perhaps provide a more fulsome explanation of how that fits in and what are we looking at.
Thank you for the question, Councillor Milton Hope. At this point, in relation to this plan, we don't know of anything that has been identified other than what the work we've done as part of the Recreation and Culture Master Plan in the culture realm. Obviously, from a cultural facilities perspective, from new facilities, we've identified, obviously, a Performing Arts Center has been identified. The Indigenous Cultural Hub was identified. One of the top items in the master plan, Rec and Culture Master Plan, also was outdoor performance spaces, gathering spaces. So those types of things we are aware of already through other planning. But as far as through this lens and this one, we haven't identified anything yet.
Will that be something that you will have a look at in the future? Because it seems that the integration of the two makes sense.
Yeah, yes, definitely we will be looking at the possibility of new facilities or new spaces. And as we go through the process of developing the community forum and doing that further engagement with the community, that's when we will be getting information as far as what the community wishes, what the community needs, and those may include new spaces for sure.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Sort of dovetailing into that community forum, I see that the progress indicator on that is a minimum of 15 innovators and bridge builders from the diverse demographic backgrounds within the community. How will you be, I see Jillian laughing at me, or Ms. Bracken laughing at me. How will you be determining those individuals?
I will invite Annalee to comment on that, please.
In regards to identification of those individuals, we have found that the best way to do that is through an open process, and that there's criteria to be met for that, but that it is an open process.
And what
for people to apply.
It'll be an application process, an open application process?
Correct. Or that you can nominate.
Okay.
Yeah.
There's two ways.
Through the chair to Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, I think this is one of the areas where we have a recommendation from the consultant that administration needs to take some time and figure out how to implement. So the recommendation from the consultant is for that open process, which we would consider, but I don't think we're yet at a point where we're ready to roll that out.
But you're rolling it. You're doing it. You're rolling it.
There is nothing.
I'll be quiet.
The community is not allowed to be heard, please. You can sit, but you can.
Working on it, man.
If you cannot be quiet, you will have to leave this room.
I'll be quiet, but I'm just saying with you, you guys are working on it.
We are, and we need to have quiet while we do our work. Thank you.
Why? You're gonna blast me away?
All right, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel, any more questions?
No, thank you very much. That clarifies it, and that's the information I can take out then when I start getting questions on this. Thank you very much.
So that does clear the queue. If you guys want to have a seat, we'll move now to the motion. And I do have a motion from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council, 1, adopt the 2024 Civic Culture Plan as an Attachment 1 in principle as a guiding document to provide direction for the continued advancement of Lethbridge as a culturally diverse city. 2, direct administration to develop a civic arts policy and a cultural heritage policy to return to the Governance Standing Policy Committee in 2025. 3, direct administration to return to City Council through the Economic and Finance Standing Policy Committee for approval of any of the objectives identified in the 2024 Civic Culture Plan as follows. Capital projects to be submitted to future capital improvement program, CIP deliberations. Initiatives requiring operating budget changes to be submitted to future operation budget deliberations. And 4, direct administration to return to City Council through the Safety and Social Standing Policy Committee with periodic updates on Civic Culture Plan initiatives. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Thank you very much for this, and thank you very much for this fantastic report. It's robust in nature. There's some great recommendations in it, and the work will certainly be guiding us into the future on this. The Civic Culture Plan is a strategic initiative that's been designed to prioritize the role of culture in advancing Lethbridge as an intercultural hub, fostering inclusivity and celebrating diversity. As Ms. Bracken stated, this plan clarifies what our role, the City of Lethbridge's role, will be in that space and a blueprint that we can follow. This is being forwarded to Council from this committee to be adopted by Council in principle. The plan envisions a community where every resident feels welcome and valued, contributing to the collective narratives that define Lethbridge's identity. The 2021 Recreation and Culture Master Plan and 2021 Municipal Development Plan do provide some high-level direction for arts and culture, but we do know that more direction was needed, and the City of Lethbridge lacks a detailed cultural strategic plan, and this fills that gap. The plan emphasizes embracing and celebrating cultural diversity and vibrancy, expressed through festivals, interactive placemaking, public art, multicultural events, and inclusive spaces. The implementation of the plan, as we learned, is structured over a 10-year time frame, and it is divided into 3 phases. With that, I will ask, and if my colleagues have no other questions, I will ask for their support.
Thank you. I just want to, before we call for the vote, thank everyone who was involved in the creation of this. It's nice to see the master plan come forward. I don't see anyone else up for debate, so question's been called. All in favor? And oppose? Passes unanimously. Thank you. And you guys can leave quickly if you want now instead of staying for the rest. Which now moves us on, not you, Councillor Dodick, you get to stay. Moves us on to presentation 5.2, Gerald Gauthier, Issues Management Specialist, which is no longer your job title, so you'll have to explain your new job title, and your presentation on Government Relations and Advocacy Update. Mr. Gauthier.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, my title since that went on the agenda has become Government Relations Manager, so pleased to be here with the committee in that capacity today. My part of this update is fairly brief, other than to say that based on some discussions among council and the city manager, our intention is, in keeping with council's wishes, we intend to be in front of this committee on a monthly basis to provide updates or on upcoming activities, or perhaps debriefs or reports on activities that have happened and any education or orientation that we'll be sort of mapping out in the next little while.
Advocacy will be not a standing item, but you'll have something for the agenda each month. Perfect to hear. Mr. Brierley, do you have anything to add?
Certainly. So as Mr. Gauthier addressed, I think with the standing item here, and if it's the will of council, building out the advocacy plan as far as what that looks like going forward. So there are the Team Lethbridge events, but there's immense value in setting up more structured meetings going forward. And there are some things that, based on the nature of intergovernmental relations, that if committee wish to go in camera, that I think might be useful to understand if you wish, be it now or at the end of the meeting, I can update you, and we could have a bit of a discussion about that. They're still working on some of those details.
So further discussion, you're suggesting we go in a closed meeting?
If committee wishes to do so, I'm happy to provide further update.
I'm seeing some consternation because I don't think we know what's going to be discussed.
I guess the problem I have with going into a closed meeting on an SPC, it creates a difficulty in that we're making a recommendation. We're just receiving
this is just information.
As information. So when it comes before council, they don't have the information, right? Because it's a verbal report. So what are we going to be recommending to council for them to accept based on this item? Okay. So if we're going because it is a verbal thing, I would suggest that if this is a closed meeting situation, that it should be at the next council meeting. Otherwise, it gets a little confusing. That's just my thoughts on it.
We could go that way, or we could ask for a written report of the information to be given in the closed consent agenda for council. So there's 2 options. Is it of time sensitive, or can it wait till be added to a future council meeting if it's something that's,
Yeah, and I don't have anything written. As I said, it's still just some things in the works, and I'm happy to update council. I could do it both here and at council, whatever a committee wishes. Just verbal updates that are very much real time.
okay. So why don't we, if everyone agrees, go into closed, hear it, and then we can decide if we want them to repeat it at the council meeting in a closed or not. Go straight to council? Okay. Kind of defeats the purpose of this meeting.
I really don't, because SPCs by their very nature is supposed to be a situation where the public is entitled to show up and speak. And so when you have a closed meeting in an SPC, it creates a little bit of an angst for me. So that's why. So I'd rather keep the SPC. Certainly, I can understand in cases where there was time sensitivity, maybe, but if it's not time sensitive, then I would prefer that we do it as a regular, I mean, we could deal with it at the next council meeting. That would be my suggestion.
Okay.
I see that Councilor Middleton might agree with me.
Oh, no, you may not go past. You must return to the seats. You will be leaving. Thank you.
Let's go. Or security gotta come. Cause I'm out.
This is not the public area, sir.
I'm saying hello to y'all.
Thank you. It is time to go back to the public area,
No,
though.
I'm going out to the street. Don't touch me.
All right, we're going to take a 5-minute recess, please.
No disrespect.
come back from recess now. And Mr. Frostad, we're good for being back online? Okay, perfect. So we do have a motion from 5.2 Government Relation and Advocacy Update. It is from Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee received the Government Relations and Advocacy Update verbal as information. Councillor Schmidt-Rempel.
Yep, as we've heard, Mr. Gauthier is going to bring us regular updates with regards to advocacy. They will come to this meeting and we will get an update at council. And I don't know that there's much else to say about this one.
Question's been called. All in favor?
I don't know what the motion is, honestly.
Accepting as information.
Accepting what?
What
we
Gerald
heard.
just said.
But Gerald's going to be doing this.
What did he say?
Gerald said that he is now the Government Relations Manager. He intends to be in front of this committee regularly, and we will have something for the agenda item each month. And we're building out an advocacy plan. And then we're going into a closed session, or no, we're not going into a closed session, but there will be an update at council.
And he won't be here, so I think we just kind of.
Congratulations, Mr. Brierley.
All right. Councillor Middleton Hope, were you voting yes for that?
Oh, sure.
Okay, that passed unanimously. Moving on now to our submissions. We have a submission from Spencer Croyle, Bylaw 6448, a bylaw to amend Bylaw 6099 City Manager Bylaw. The information was provided in your package. This is looking at taking two City Council policies that would then be moved over into the bylaw around land sales and land leases. Are there any members of the public who wish to speak on it? I'm going to assume probably no. It's 6.1. Any questions from members of committee related to 6.1? Okay. I have a couple of questions, and I'll start with you, Mr. Lowen. So we're looking here at repealing a couple of City Council policies and moving that information into a bylaw. From a legal perspective, what standing do City Council policies have, and what relationship do they have to bylaw? Which has a stronger legal standing?
A city bylaw is a law like a law of the province or a law of the federal government, so it's legislation. Policy is an internal governance document that governs the administration and the corporation of the city. So where there's a conflict between a bylaw and a policy, the bylaw would supersede the policy to the extent that there was a conflict.
So this action would actually strengthen basically what council is providing the city manager for direction.
This is the strongest form of direction and accountability that councils can maintain for the city manager and administration in terms of precisely what authority or decisions that they are allowing administration to make versus ones that are required to come to council for further decisions.
Perfect. And Mr. Croyle, don't think you're going to get away without answering the question. So you're taking these two real estate acquisition and real estate sales and leases, the two city council policies. Have you made any changes in the amounts that is being provided to the city manager to to oversee?
Thank you for the question, Madam Chairperson. I think if I could refer to pages, I'm not sure how to reference these, given that they're a part of the larger package, but there is a table in the agenda report itself that shows a comparison between the policies that are in place currently, CC 37 and CC 45, and the difference in the actual dollar values between the policies and the proposed bylaw amendments. So for example, under policy CC 37, which is for acquisitions, the city manager may currently expend up to $50,000 to enter into options to purchase for real estate. And under the bylaw amendment, the city manager would be able to purchase or delegate the authority to purchase up to $5 million worth of property. Now, to bookend that comment, I do want to highlight that in looking at these changes with legal services and other relevant departments, it's notable that several other municipalities have ranges anywhere between $2 and $10 million for what they're able to purchase. And often it's only the case when it's already a part of an approved capital improvement plan or a similar type of budget mechanism that council has already approved.
Okay. And regardless of the decisions made about amounts or anything, if this moves forward into a bylaw, like every bylaw, it will come back for first, second reading, et cetera, at which time council could make any amendments, changes they would like to see at that point.
That's correct.
So this would sort of start the process, but is not in any way the completion of a process, if we move in this direction.
Right.
Okay, perfect. Thank you, Mr. Crowe. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Just a quick question in regards to CC 37, Mr. Croyle. So currently, the city manager can expend up to $50,000. The proposal is to delegate purchase power up to $5 million. The gap between $50,000 and $5 million, is that simply because we've not attended to this for a number of years?
Through the chair to Councillor Middleton Hope, that's a great question that I may have to rely on other members of administration to answer. I haven't had a chance to go through and look at the exact increase in dollar amounts given the revisions that have occurred since the 1980s.
Since the 1980s?
That's correct. That's when CC 37 first came to be.
Yeah, well, which is what I'm thinking. Mr. Brierley, do you have any thoughts on that?
No, I'll look to the city solicitor as well, but I think that's, your point is somewhat accurate unless Mr. Lowen has, it's just the changes in terms of the gap that existed and then things coming to council in light of that gap, which creates extra time and work and delays. So this is actually providing some efficiency.
Okay.
Nothing to add to those comments. That's exactly what's happening. Yeah.
Point on. Yeah. All right, we'll leave it at that. Thank you.
I thought I saw Councillor Schmidt-Rempel in the queue, but your question has been answered, or were you in the queue? Okay, Councillor Schmidt-Rempel. Oh, hit your button again because I did the same thing as Mr. Frostad.
Thank you very much. And while you're up here, Mr. Croyle, I'll ask a question as well here. So when we're looking at that comparison, the side-by-side CC 37 with the new city bylaw amendment proposed, just confirm for me that section 8.2 of the current city manager bylaw states that at no time shall the city manager authorize operating or capital expenditures in excess of the approved total operating or capital budgets. So that keeps that in line with him not going over that 5 million, or any purchases have to be aligned within those budgets anyway, correct?
Yes.
Okay. And then just further to that, purchases of 5 million or less and less than 5 acres, which is what we're now increasing it to, they can only be made if those purchases are already approved in the operating and capital budgets. So we have those fail-safes, so to speak.
Yes, that's correct.
Okay. Thank you very much.
I don't see any more questions. If you want to have a seat, we'll move on to the motion. And I do have a motion from Councillor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council, 1, provide first reading to Bylaw 6448, amendment to City Manager Bylaw 6099, and 2, repeal Policy CC 37, real estate acquisition, and Policy CC 45, real estate sales and leases, after third reading of Bylaw 6448. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Just to perhaps paraphrase what has been said, and including Mr. Croyle as well, it would appear that this is an updating of existing policy or practices more specifically to align with contemporary actions that are being taken by the city. So I don't have any difficulty in approving this. That would be my nickel's worth. If there are any other comments from my colleagues, seeing none, then we can call a question, Madam Chair.
Okay, question's been called. All in favor? That passes unanimously. Thank you, Mr. Croyle. Moving now to the other one on the City Manager Bylaw. This one is Bylaw of the City of Lethbridge to amend City Manager Bylaw 6099 and City Clerk Bylaw 4783. What this one is looking at is who oversees FOIP and the delegation of FOIP. Are there any questions from members of council? Okay, Councillor Dodick.
Yes, in looking at this, I see that former City Mayor Dave Carpenter back in 1998 designated the City Clerk's office to deal with FOIP. So I'm curious, has there been any problem with having the City Clerk's office as having that designation since 1998 to have a change made at this point in time?
Thank you for the question. There hasn't been any problems at all.
Okay. So in this report, it talks about engagement has included internal dialogue with legal services and city clerk's department. It says has included. So could you specify, and I'm on a big kick on engagement these days, so
Services Department, Adam Foss, the solicitor in our department, did engage. He advised me he engaged with Mr. Westerson of the Clerk's Department quite some time ago. And then more recently, we had a discussion between the current FOIP office, the Clerk's office, which was Bonnie Hilford, engaging with her and myself. That would include both the FOIP coordinator, Melissa Vanderheide, who's here, and the IM manager, Andrea Connect.
engagement and agreement are two different things. Was any agreement reached, or was simply informal discussions held, is what it seems to suggest here?
I'm not aware of any disagreement, but nor could I say that there was some formal motion passed or anything of that nature.
Okay, I don't know if the city clerk's office can answer this, but in a calendar year, for 2025, do you know how many FOIP requests were addressed?
Well, kindly refer to Mr. Sarsfield as the former FOIP coordinator. Myself, I never had FOIP within my purview, so I can't speak to that, but I would defer to Mr. Sarsfield.
I'm sorry, for what year? So the city clerk stopped doing it in approximately February 2023. Before that, we were averaging close to 200.
Okay, I'm sorry, I'm a little confused. Stopped doing it in 2023.
It was reassigned or taken away from our office in about February or March, approximately 2023.
Okay, now I'm really confused. But we had a designate being the city clerk that was still, or is extant up until now, until second and third reading of the bylaws. So can someone answer, how was it taken away?
It was my decision, and I moved it to legal services.
All right, so we're operating, we have a designate, and until it changes, that designate is in place, is it not? So is this sort of playing catch up with what's, okay.
Yeah, I think to answer that question, I'll look to city solicitor if he has any further comments. Because of the change in alignment and based on the discussions at that time, the alignment with legal services and the matters that often arise related to FOIP, the alignment made sense, and so this is a follow-up on those changes that were made is what I would say.
Okay, well, if it's operated without problem, well, obviously till 2023 without problem, why do we need legal services to be involved in this and not leave the designation, which has been in place at least 2023 for 25 years at that time?
Point of order, though, you're questioning the city manager's right to designate whom he wants in the operations.
No, the designation has already been made. This is to pass a bylaw to send it back to essentially reverse the designation.
And I think if I'm not speaking out of turn, I think what this, though, does is give it to the city manager, who can then delegate to whomever in the organization he wishes.
Well, I believe the city manager at the time had it, and the city manager at that time designated it to the city clerk. So then if what you're saying is correct, then why are we here at all?
it is basically housekeeping. That would be, only person we can designate anything to is the city manager, and then the city manager can designate through operations to whomever he chooses.
Okay, after 2023, did it involve additional staff to deal with FOIP requests?
In the last operational budget, there was an FTE approved. At that time, the business unit was in the city clerk's office. That FTE was transferred as part of that alignment, and we have the FOIP coordinator present in council. I'd be happy to introduce her to the committee if you wish.
Okay, so a FOIP, so till 2023, the clerk's office was doing it with the staff that they had in hand, and then we had to obtain additional staff.
There was a business case made by the clerk's office because they needed, in the status quo of things, made the case for an additional FTE, and that FTE was approved by council. The alignment came after the council's decision to approve that.
Okay, but it added an additional FTE.
That's right.
Okay.
Not as a result of, but the only point I'm making is not as a result of the alignment change. The FTE was added prior to that in any event.
I guess I go back to the first question I asked, and the answer that was given was, had everything been working out at the clerk's office with FOIP? And the answer was that it had been working out. So I take it that's your answer as well?
I wasn't in any operational supervisory role at the clerk's office prior to it coming to my division, so I wouldn't really be qualified to make comments on the operations of their division. That should probably be directed to clerk's office or to the city manager.
Is it often, the clerk's office in other cities often have that designated to them?
I think there's a variety of practices around North America. It's very commonly found in the clerk's office.
Okay, thank you.
Councillor Middleton Hope.
Just an observation. I think my colleague would readily acknowledge that between 1998 and 2023 or 2025, the volume of FOIP requests has increased exponentially, and the city manager is making a decision to reallocate resources and responsibilities to another area of the corporation. The one area that I agree with my colleague on is then, if that is the case, that the city manager has the authority to do this and has done this, then why is this before us?
The reason this is before us, and Mr. Westerson can confirm this, is that under the bylaws, existing bylaws, there is a discrepancy. One bylaw has it going to the city clerk's department, and we are looking now to clean everything up so that it is delegated to the city manager, and then the city manager oversees under operations who is the FOIP coordinator.
Recognizing exactly what you said, thank you for the clarification for the public. I agree.
It's like a narrative on a TV show where they have to wrap up the crime at the end. Okay. Mr. Lowen.
I think I can just provide a little bit of extra detail that might answer some of the questions. When those decisions about the administrative structure were made by the city manager, under the Freedom of Information Protection of Privacy Act, Section 85 allows the designated head of the public body, which would have been the clerk, or under the clerk's bylaws it is now, to give effect to the city manager's decision. So that's where that transferred. This is a housekeeping matter to make it more permanent under the city manager's authority to designate now or in the future, in any future administrative changes. So we're not, just emphasizing the point, we're not failing to comply with the status quo at this point. This is just playing catch up in a more efficient and effective way.
I don't see any further questions, and I don't know if there's anyone in the public who wishes to speak on this. Okay, please come forward. Please provide your name for the city clerk, and then you have 5 minutes.
My name is Joel McNeil, and I'm sorry, I just arrived, so I'm not sure which item you were on, but
we're on item 6.2 around the FOIP.
Right. So I'm just have concerns about items 6.1 and 6.2 because it seems to me that just from my reading of the attachments that it's giving more more authority to the city manager who is not elected. And to me, upping the purchase of real estate from 50,000 to 5 million that's a lot of money to have no oversight by council. That's just the way it seems to me. And same with upping the non-residential sales to 1.5 million. I noticed that the engagement was only internal dialogue. It didn't seem to be with the mayor and council. And regarding it's just basically, I think I just don't know. I would rather have elected people decide on expensive real estate deals like that. And I'm also, and I think this is what you guys were just talking about, but the head of the public body under the Freedom of Information and Privacy Act is going to change from the city clerk to the city manager. And to me, I'm concerned about that because the city manager, does that mean he can decide what the public can access under Freedom of Information? So yeah, those are my concerns. I just think I'm just concerned that that these amendments give the city manager too much power. Thank you.
Thank you. So I'll ask that question then to you, Mr. Brierley. When we look at changes from the MGA since 1998, et cetera, is it not commonly done that the city manager has the authority over FOIP and then delegates under his operational oversight?
So a point that might help to clarify is the city clerk is one of my staff. So this is quite simply just a realignment of the duties as I see fit. And if council would wish for more information, I'm happy to go in camera, but I would need the staff to leave.
Okay.
I can provide a more fulsome answer. There are operational decisions for my decision, and I will leave it at that.
Okay. And second question, and I know it applies to the earlier submission, which we've already talked about, but you already had delegated authority under those council policies. Not to the amounts, but you already had delegated authority.
Correct.
Okay, perfect. Thank you. Any other questions from any members of the committee or any members of council? And does anyone want to go in camera, or are we good with the discussion as we've had it? Councillor Dodick?
In this case, I know Jeff Carlson pointed out to me that we do go in camera in audit and things like that. In this case, I think we need a brief closed meeting with just the city manager. It'll become apparent why.
Okay, so you're making a motion that we go into a closed session?
Yes.
Okay, motion has been made. All in favor? And opposed? All right, so as we're going into close, that means we will have to ask all members of the Let me know when we're good. All right. Okay, we're back in open session, and we are still on 6.2. Is there any other questions that any members of the committee have coming out of closed session? Okay. Then we will move to debate, and I have a motion from Councillor Middleton Hope. Be it resolved that the Governance Standing Policy Committee recommend that City Council provide first reading to Bylaw 6431, amendment to City Manager Bylaw 6099, and City Clerk Bylaw 4783. Councillor Middleton Hope.
Thank you, Madam Chair, and thank you to members of the public for stepping out for a couple of moments. We needed to have some clarity around this particular motion. Having now had that clarity provided to us, I think we are now in a position where my opening and closing would be, this is a housekeeping matter primarily. We are moving forward with this particular motion, and I ask for my colleagues' support.
I think Mr. Lowen may have even more clarity since he's requesting to speak. Mr. Lowen?
Is he?
I just wanted to correct the record in something that I had said earlier at the break. Mr. Westerson approached me and asked me to double check on what I had represented Mr. Faust had done in terms of engagement. And when I checked with Adam Faust, Mr. Faust, he said it was so long ago he doesn't remember. And so I just wanted to make that clear that if Mr. Westerson doesn't remember that engagement, that likely wasn't him. So
Okay, so just to make sure we have the record straight on that. All right, so we go back to Councillor Middleton Hope has brought forward the opening. Is there anyone else who wishes to speak? Councillor Dodick?
Yep. I just want to make it very clear that any of my comments and questions have absolutely, I do not in any way intend to say anything regarding the work performed by Ms. Melissa Vanderhyde. And so my questions and my concerns were a process thing. So just so you know, I have no difficulty with that aspect of it. But to be consistent, because I have to do a symbolic vote, so I'll be voting against it. But nothing to do with you. Just so
Was
you know.
that self-explanatory? All right. So we have the motion in front. If this moves forward, it will go to first reading at probably not the next council meeting, but the one after that. And then any members of the public would have the 2 weeks in between if they want to send letters in at a concern. So there is still an opportunity for people to respond, just explaining the process. But I will turn it back to Councillor Middleton Hope. Oh, Mr. Frostad and I are both way too fast. Go ahead, Councillor Middleton Hope.
Good, and thank you very much. And I will call the question, Madam Chair.
Okay, question's been called. All in favor? And opposed? All right, that passes 3-1 and is being recommended on to council. Moves us next to our next item on the agenda, which is adjournment. Yeah, we are adjourned. Enjoy the full moon tonight.